We're here, episode 2 of the Failing Forward podcast. We're here with really the host, Taylor. I'm the longtime guest, and our first true guest, Owen Chilcoat. Owen, thanks for coming on, man.
Wow, quite the intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
absolutely. This is my favorite podcast. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. How many episodes have you listened to?
I've listened to the one you've put out, and but this is like my Joe Rogan, so this is exciting to be here.
So you listened to 100% of our eps?
I might be your biggest fan.
I was gonna say you and nobody else.
If you check the views, I'm one of them. That's for sure. So
this episode's brought to you by Side League. Side League is the fantasy football of side projects for you and your friends. Taylor, how many users, leagues, TikTok followers? Where are we at in the metrics there?
Oh, that's great. Let me get with our stats guys on that to see if we can get an up to the date stats on that.
And Owen, one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on this episode while Taylor's pulling up the stats on Side League is...
Oh, I'm not pulling them up. Our stats guys are.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
They're hard at work.
One of the things that, what were they doing before the episode? If, that's their role, the stats guys, they don't even have the numbers.
They're just waiting for numbers, man.
So, Owen, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on here is because our thesis is that there's a lot of people that are intimidated at the prospect of starting a project in fear of failure, unaware of the idea that a lot of this is failing forward, of being unashamed of just making mistakes, actually taking initiative and starting something, and just kind of embracing the fact that you're going to make mistakes along the way. And I can't really think of a better parallel or model for broad entrepreneurship as there is with songwriting. I think there's so many different layers to starting a project or an idea any sort of venture that you're working on that you can find in venture. And so just in prep for this, I was looking at some things. So in August of this year, you released an 8-song album underneath your solo act Chilcoat, Technicolor. 8 songs that are on there. You had two singles leading up to that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then in October, you announced that you've been playing alongside Columbus band JD. You've been playing bass for them. Is that right?
Guitar, bass, keys. Yeah. A little bit of everything. Yeah.
Okay. A little bit of everything. And their album Silver dropped in October, of which you either wrote or produced 11 of 14 songs.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And
then you guys, I believe, headlined at Kemba on October 18th.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So, hands down, this has to be your biggest year of music, just as it relates to on paper. Is that fair to say?
Yes, leaps and bounds ahead of anything I had ever done before. So it kind of went 0 to 100 pretty quickly. Yeah.
We'll obviously go back to the beginning here in a little bit, but what are your kind of fresh reflections on kind of 2 very substantial products kind of being put out there in August and in a 3-month period of time? What are the, and to headline at for Columbus musicians or Columbus fans, Kemba, which has gone through different names throughout the years, that is an epic venue to play music at. Yeah. Just to give you an idea to hype you up even more, I had friends that went and hired babysitters so they could go to the JD show. I hope that just resonates with you, how crazy that is. That people are kind of changing their plans for the weekend to go see you guys.
That's a fun thing to hear. Yeah, it is. It's a weird feeling, that's for sure. I think the biggest things that I leave that span, and moving forward. One thing is, it's funny what's today's date? November 11th. So about a month after the JD album's released, a few months post putting out music under my own name. And I don't really have anything I'm working on at the moment. It was kind of everything I was doing is now out in the world, which has never, ever been like that. So that's kind of an interesting feeling, one. But second off, I think that which I'm excited to talk as we're talking about failing forward, of the idea of putting stuff out in the world and that always being this intimidating, scary thing. And now having put out the most I've ever, poured into in a year, out into the world, and kind of this feeling of like, oh, I could do that again. That wasn't too bad. So I think that's the immediate gut reaction following, a
That
lot being put out into the world. Yeah, for sure.
well done, man. I mean, that's epic.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I imagine, songwriting can be things where you have melody lines, probably have 50 unfinished songs and saved, memo recordings on your phone or things that you've written down and stuff. And to actually get the ball across the finish line, it has to feel some bit of relief. I would like to go back to do some biography, just as it relates to music. I think most people listening to this probably took some sort of music lessons at some point, and now today go, oh, I wish I stuck with piano, or I wish I stuck with guitar. I never really stuck with it. Well, what's your origin story with music as it relates to lessons, first instruments you obtained and started playing, things like that?
That's great. Yeah, good question. I think you're probably right when it comes to the sentiment of most people being like, I wish this is something I'd stuck with. Grew up, it was probably 3 or 4. My parents will always talk about having this weird ability to pull different instruments out of a song, things that they wouldn't have noticed. So they pull this example of like being in the car and saying something of like, being again like this 4-year-old kid being like, I love the bass line in this song, and then being like, I don't even know how you know that term. We don't know what a bass is. I didn't come from a at least immediate family not being incredibly musical. I have a few musicians across my family, but so that probably had a interest in music at a young age, and then when I was like 4 or 5, would just like drum on the couch, and they were like, he kind of has this rhythm that feels like, is more than a normal kid. So I got a drum kit, I think for my 5th birthday, 5th or 6th birthday. And that kind of started teaching myself drums. And then from there, I took a little bit of piano lessons, but I did not last long. A common theme of my life is I hate being told what to do, and did not last long in piano lessons. And then kind of from there was able to pick up, once I knew piano, kind of able to pick up guitar. Once I knew guitar, able to pick up bass. So kind of a natural flow from there, with drums being the first instrument that I kind of picked up.
Did you have musical influences that inspired you from an early age, or was it purely the draw of a good bass line, a good beat, things along those lines?
Musical influences. I do think
John Mayer has his like Marty McFly moment. I don't know if you ever heard him talk about that.
Yeah.
We're watching Back to the Future, playing Johnny Be Good. That's kind of like his moment in time. I'd be curious if you had any influences like that.
Yes, I can think of 2 moments. So there's one is a little bit more niche. Is would either of you know, this is like a Christian rock group from the early 2000s, Jars of Clay?
Yeah, 1,000%.
So my dad had a Jars of Clay CD in his car that I was like, and honestly still this day, it's called The Long Fall Back to Earth. It's not their most famous album. It's but it was like the thing to me when I was a kid, and I would always ask to put that on, and memorize those songs, and so that was one of the first albums that I like fell in love with and still love to this day, which is awesome. But honestly, my first real inspiration was Columbus duo 21 Pilots. So that was another CD that my dad had in his car, and it was probably 2011 or 2012, and hearing the chorus of a song called "Holding On to You," which was one of their first tracks that they had been putting out, and being like just infatuated by this song. And being obsessed with them. So they were definitely the blueprint to me growing up, and were my biggest inspiration. And had some, connections to them, and was fortunate enough to meet them a few times, and thought they were the Kings of Columbus, and they're still doing sweet stuff to this day. But
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, were you around any of those any of those like super early shows that they were doing? I mean, I felt like they were just like anybody who would say yes, they could play around them. They were like, great, we'll be there at all of our stuff.
yeah, my first 21 Pilot show I went to, it was a place, if you're listening from Columbus, off Bethel Road, right behind, it's now an Indian restaurant, right behind that White Castle. And it
Yeah.
was called Club 7. And it was
Wow.
it was
Come
like
on
a
now.
hole in the wall. I mean, it's not there. Again, it's an Indian restaurant now. And I saw them there. It was probably 2011 or probably 2011.
Yeah.
And it is
This is pre-Fueled by Ramen days, right?
oh yeah, they're not signed. I don't think they had probably played Newport even at this point. And
Yeah.
I can remember there's probably 20 people in the room. The 5 of my family being 5 of them, and his
Yeah.
parents being 2 of them, and them starting the show, and he's climbing on the rafters of the ceiling, and walking in, and I said to my mom, I think that's Nick Jonas. That was the first thing I said. I was like, I think Nick Jonas is climbing on the ceiling.
Let's
But the rest is history. Obviously, they're like the biggest band in the world now. So
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
cool
talk about like humble beginnings. I feel like some of the things that they did at the beginning, and every artist, like I'm sure you've got those stories. And I'm excited to hop into those, but like, yeah, some of the things
which I will add on.
Yeah,
No, I totally interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
no, it's a good.
There's the slight recording delay. I totally interrupted you.
No, we're here to hear you.
Is that day I was probably 7 years old and had been playing drums for about a year or two, and who I thought was Nick Jonas, Tyler, had come up to us at the start of the show. Again, there's probably 20 people. Be like, you should come and play a song with me. And I said no. And I think it's one of my biggest regrets. To be able to tell the story of this podcast and say I got to play a show with 21 Pilots would have been pretty awesome, but I can't say that happened. So
yeah, I mean,
that was
like the wildness of like you're just doing things, you're building fans, you're like they're in a spot where they're climbing all over this club, like things in Club 7, playing to a 7-year-old and like a couple of other family and distant probably family members. Like you just have to get going and you just have to get started. It's
as it relates to Columbus grand attempts at a dream, they might be kind of like the pinnacle example of being willing to embrace like a failing forward type of mantra. Like it's actually interesting. In prep for the interview, I was just watching some of JD's videos on YouTube, and some of I think they did some sort of like mini tour in Europe. Is that right? Like in Berlin and things like that. It's amazing. Like I mean this in the highest regards of compliments to JD. Like it reminds me of the really early days in like 2009, 2010, and when 21 Pilots is having Real Bear Media. Mark Eshelman, I think is the guy's name, made these videos. And when the band went from like a quartet technically to a duo, like there's all these like indie film mini documentaries of them where Tyler's sitting at what I think is like a very early version of Logic on his computer. And he's talking about like, well, now we don't have, like a guitarist, we don't have a bassist, and he's like just talking out loud, and he's like, so we'll just have the 2 of us. And he has this one moment in one particular video where he says, I think we could do it. I think we could do it. And then it goes on and shows them playing these shows. And that's what made them so interesting is like, they would have 2 fans at a show in Indianapolis or 10 fans at a show in Seattle. But then in Columbus, they would sell out Newport 2 days in a row. So it had this really interesting, like, product market fit in Columbus. And then that's what kind of caused the attention of all of the media brands, obviously.
Oh, 100%. The definitely shooting for a local crowd was definitely what propelled them into stardom, and it's not a popular approach to be a band and be like, we're going to rely so heavily on tracks and what comes out of the PA because we can't replicate that sound live. That's not something that music executives are going to turn their head at and be like, this is awesome. So to really embrace that and not, shy away from that it was definitely a risk, but obviously it's paid off greatly for them.
So after you were kind of above 21 Pilots pay grade, like you weren't willing to play with them and stuff. Were you thinking at some point at that age, I want to write my own music?
I think, I mean, maybe. I think I always had this fascination with music, but I don't think that I ever thought that writing music would really be something that I would be interested in or really capable of. I had never really tried it, and was at that point really just playing drums, and I was like, I love this. I could do this forever. But I think it wasn't until later there was a guy at a church I grew up going to who kind of was the first person in my life to kind of, pull something out of me and kind of point something out in my life and be like, I actually think there's like a deeper talent than just playing drums, and kind of got to show me the ropes taught me how to play guitar early on, and was showing me how to work a computer, like you're saying, how to use Logic, which is a program to make music on a computer, all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it was till then that I was like, wait, I could like make my own songs. I could try to write lyrics and produce out songs. So I think it wasn't until I was probably in that 11, 12 range that I was like, I think I could do more with this. Yeah.
So before songwriting, then when do you think the first time, even if it was the smallest audience possible, what was the first public performance of a musical instrument you think you did?
I know exactly where this was. Well, so there was a piano recital that I guess in the few months I took piano lessons, there was one recital I can recall, which is on video.
Was that also at Kemba?
Yeah, it was a grand ball. Yeah, no, I think it was at some place off like Morse Road or something. No,
Club 7.
The Club 7. You know how it used to be back in the day.
Everybody gets their start.
Before the chicken shawarma, it was yeah, no. No, the first place, this is actually hilarious. One of my dad's friends was, I believe, running like a nonprofit where they would go and sing like hymns at like homeless shelters and soup kitchens that and he asked me to come play drums, and I'm like probably 7 or 8. So it's like him and his wife, and they've got like a synthesizer, and he's playing guitar, and I can imagine I am just like rocking out on the drums, having no idea how to, and I'm sure that was well received at the time in that crowd. So that was my first performance, was at a soup kitchen somewhere in downtown Columbus.
Okay, question off that real quick. Did you the way that you describe it, I feel like you're describing it as kind of like a no fear, like I'm going to go after it. Did you have like a confidence in that, or was it like something you were nervous about?
Yeah, I think when it came to drums, I always kind of had this weird confidence of just being like, I want to get after this. I think it wasn't until I was like, maybe I can do songwriting, that's when really I was like, had negative confidence. So it was like, I want to avoid this at all costs. So it's kind of an inverse thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. We'll probably dive into that in a minute, but Trent, sorry, I interrupted you. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Owen, as it relates to playing music, it was kind of to the point that you were just getting at.
Yeah.
Were you pretty regularly playing music at around 7 or 8 years old then, from that point on, publicly?
No, I feel like my soup kitchen tour was just a one-off thing. If I can say that, I'm not sure how the listeners might perceive that. But no, when I was like probably 11 or 12, I started helping out at church pretty regularly. But I think from whatever that range is, 7 to 11, was just playing all the time at home.
Okay,
and so nothing really public.
12, you're playing public music pretty publicly, or at least pretty consistently, rather. And that's around the same time you're maybe beginning to kind of think about this idea of writing your own music. So fast forwarding a little bit, the earliest thing I can see on Spotify is that you released, I think Heaven was the first single that's on here, at least in 2022. Is that the first public thing that you released of your own music?
Yeah. So it was kind of this thing where it was COVID times, and I'm, had bought a computer and was trying to do production stuff, and was just kind of at this point where I was like, I think music would be a fun thing to pursue, but I'm not really sure. And I think I was just kind of like, it'd be kind of fun to build this like resume of songs where it's like, if I want to put myself out there, I've got to have something tangible for people to be able to listen to. So that was just kind of scrape that together my junior year of high school. And that was really the first time I kind of put myself out there in terms of people at school knowing that I had an interest in music. I had sang some at church, but it was never a thing that I was like proud of or thought I was gifted in. It's not something I'm like worlds of some aficionado or whatever you want to call it at singing. But it wasn't until that point that I had really done anything of my own or shown anyone, even in my family. That was something they give me a hard time of. I had made, I don't know what it was, probably 6 songs. I have not, whatever that project is with Heaven on it, and hadn't shown anyone in my family until I was like ready to put it out. And just one day was like, all right, guys, I'm going to put these songs out. And they're like, we didn't even know you were doing this. So I think, I think there was just this genuine fear of being, like, I don't want people to even know I do this. Yeah,
for sure.
Did any piece of you think about releasing it under a pseudonym or like a pen name that wasn't that it would almost could be, you could fail privately almost? Yes. Or were you from the jump thinking like, I just got to embrace this to my own name?
Yeah, Lemony Snicket was thrown out there for one season, and I decided the copywriting would be too hard to get past. No,
I think series of copyrights.
Yeah, I think when it came to that, I was just like, I mean, I might as well just shoot my shot. So I don't think I was really too afraid about my name being attached to it. No, but yeah.
Okay, got it. So then, what would you say was the most intimidating part about actually hitting publish on that first project?
Yeah,
there's so many things. I mean, I could think the singing publicly, the lyrics, just the general reception.
Yeah, I mean, you are saying a lot of them. I think. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's something about songwriting, and this is kind of getting to what you're wanting to talk about with songwriting, of there's something so vulnerable. It's like almost opening up your journal and being like, all right, world, I want you to read what is my brain out on paper. Yeah. And especially then of, I like to think that I've gotten somewhat better at writing a song over the last few years. If I cringe if I listen to those songs from a few years ago. But it is like it's such a vulnerable place to open yourself up to judgment. And you're kind of like this part that I've held on to so tightly that's very intimate to me. And I'm singing, I would sing down here in my basement and whisper so my family wouldn't hear me upstairs. And I would, only do it in my headphones. I would never play it out loud, all the stuff. And now it's like, when I hit publish, anyone with a phone can find this if they desire. So I do think there's a sense of this fear of rejection and people being like, and also there's music is so, in a good way, so widely debated and discussed because it's so beautiful, but it's so subjective. So to be a junior in high school and to be pulling from all these influences that I think are sweet and I think what I'm making at the time is awesome, but then put it out for some old head who, loves Kiss and he hears it, he's going to think I'm a loser. I'm like, the having a comment stream come in at 17, that's not always a fun thing, but no, I think that's why I've really leaned into my Kiss side more on this last project.
Because you got all those
got all those mean comments about how much I don't sound like Kiss, that now I've been doing the full makeup and all, but no. But anyways.
Oh man. So I mean, what? Tell me about the feedback. I mean, you're
Yeah.
17. You've
Yeah.
got like all the intimidation of the world. You hit publish. Give me the full spectrum of feedback that you had to deal with on the first, public production of a personal product.
Yeah, I can remember I purposefully chose the last week of school. It came out like the end of May. I purposefully chose the last week of school because I was like, if people hate it, I can go hide away all summer.
See you later.
And yeah, I was like, I don't have to see you guys again.
Yeah.
And I can remember it had like set out to publish at noon, so it comes out while I'm at school on a Friday. And one of my teachers being like, I heard you just put out a song, and being so embarrassed. I'm like, I can't, get away from me. Don't talk about it like that. Even though it's like, what, I just put out music and now I'm going to hide from it. So kind of a funny thing to look back on, but definitely feedback was overwhelmingly positive. I think more than anything, there's a sense of like people being generally proud, because I think people understand what it's not like I'm joining the military or something, but there's this sense of like people recognize what that takes to not only work on that, but to feel comfortable enough to put yourself out there. I think there's that kind of consensus around that. And especially locally within the circles that I run in and people I know were definitely all supportive and were liking what they were hearing. So that was definitely encouraging. At 17 was definitely fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just took off straight up.
It's always up and to the right with me.
Always up and to the right is the graph. Right?
Everything I touch is gold. So
love it.
Yeah,
that's why we had you on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, all your listeners know who I am for sure. It was. I think that was the other funny thing of not at all knowing anything about the music industry, just being like, yeah, this is gonna blow up, and this is my job now. Guess I'm gonna be famous, and kiss my friends goodbye, and then it gets like a few hundred streams, and being like, all right, well, never mind, back to the drawing board.
How do you deal with that? How do you process through and work through that? Because I mean, we didn't talk before, so that could have been a dumb question of me to ask, and you're like, yeah, this was a Billboard top hit, like the first one, but I feel like you put something out there, it doesn't, it generally, you get that good feedback, which is great, but then like, how do those metrics follow? How do you iterate on that next step and understand, okay, here's where we're at. Here's where we need to get to.
For sure. And I think that's something, I think that's something maybe been one of the biggest changes that has happened within me across the last 3 or 4 years, is I would like obsess over a number and be like, Spotify has a wonderful user interface where you can, and I love numbers, but you look at all this data of how many people are currently listening, their gender, age, location, what playlist you're added to. Every data point you could ever want is available to the artist, which I do still enjoy looking at. But it was like an obsession of mine, and being like staring at it like a clock and waiting for this number to update. And I think what has changed is kind of having to realign, like, okay, what is my purpose with this song? And kind of like, what is my measurement of success? So then I was throwing a dart blindly and being like, I hope this lands. And I have no idea what to expect, but I think people tell me I'm talented. People tell me this is good. So of course that's going to translate to the masses. And then when that doesn't happen, it can feel like a letdown. Now I feel like I'm so much more like, all right, I'm proud of this piece of music, and I want someone to hear it. So that alone, that can be enough of a success to me to build the courage to put something out. And it doesn't matter what that metric may look like, because that it is especially in an era where it's ruled by streaming and TikTok and all the things that I don't understand.
Dude, I put out I put out like a TikTok, and I'm like crippled with like I have to like lock my phone, so I can't go look at those metrics and all those things. I can't imagine like pouring that amount of time into like art that you're making, and you're putting so much time into it, and the amount of metrics that you can track onto it,
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough. From a business perspective, I mean, it's a little bit different, for sure. But from a business perspective, I think you hit the nail on the head there of just like, where is your identity, and what's the focus of what you're doing. It's so easy to get caught up in like my business outcomes or my music outcomes, or whatever outcomes that you're looking for are who you are at times when you see those metrics and you see those other things. But yeah, holding that identity and saying, hey, I want to put music out into the world. I want to have a greater goal than just making myself look good.
Oh yeah.
It's super important, and I've felt that a lot. I'm sure Trent too, in building Deli and other projects that we've built on. If you don't have an identity that's bigger than that, it's so easy to get wrapped up into yeah.
And I think now more than ever, to just real quick end on that topic, now more than ever, with the metrics that we're talking about, is such a blessing and a curse. I'm like, now more than ever, we have access to that. And I almost wish I could just put something out into the world and not have to worry about a click or a view, whatever that might be, because I think it can take away from the art.
All right, amazing news. We had 2 people's Wi-Fi go down at the same time on this, so we're going to keep going. And it's fail forward. The whole thing's about failing, and we failed on our second podcast. We failed to properly host the podcast because of our Wi-Fi, but that's okay.
Well, let me just bring us right in. One of the things you had talked about with the when you were releasing that first record when you were 17, what was the thing that eventually got you to hit publish? You had all the fears there. What was the thing that actually kind of finally was like, I need to do this. I have to do it anyway.
Yeah. I think that the push that got me over the edge was thinking about, okay, I've got these songs that are like fully fleshed out, fully finished, which was the first time that I'd ever had that. Beyond, like you had mentioned earlier, like a demo or some voice recording on my phone, and having them fully fleshed out, and then just being like, it serves me no purpose to have them sit on a hard drive and on my laptop for forever. So I think just thinking about like, if this means something to me and it serves no purpose sitting here, maybe someone else could connect to it too. And that was kind of the push that got me over the edge.
And you also had fast forwarded to talking about the as it relates to some of the music that you look back on now, it kind of causes you to cringe a little bit. Would you say the same about the music that you recently released as well?
I don't think so. I think that's something that's changed is now. And I think what's really interesting about music is I think I heard someone say once of like, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but this is at least the way that I have interpreted it, is like the music that you release is never going to be the perfect version of a song. It's just going to be the version of a song that you like the most up to that point, and the one that you can sit with yourself and be like, yeah, I guess I can let other people hear this, which is so interesting, because if I hear a song that was 3 years ago or whatever, that however long ago that was, there's so much I'm like, if I could go back, I would redo this. I would rewrite that line. I would change this. I would re-record that instrument. Like, and it drives me crazy. It's like it's whatever. Now there's certain aspects I'm like, excuse me. So on the flip side of that though, there's also part of me that's like, but this was a time capsule into my life where this is what I was going through at the time. These were the inspirations I was pulling from. This is what I was writing about because it meant something to me. And there's part of me that's like, I wouldn't want to change anything about it, even if I listened to it and wish it was different. And I think the reason I don't feel that way about the other music is it's just way too recent for me to have notes on it, because I basically spent all year working on it until I got to a point that I was like, yeah, I really like these songs. And I think these are worth other people hearing. So I don't know if it'll be a great sign if it's 2 months into it and being like, I hate this. But I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if 10 years from now I listen to it and I'm like, I wish that part sounded differently. But can't,
Dude,
again,
that's
I
like
think there's part of it that's beautiful that once you put out into the world, it's kind of takes on a life of its own rather than sitting on my computer.
That's like the
And
most
so,
classic startup advice ever. It's like so good how that overlaps of just, like you just have to, like, you're not going to get it perfect. You got to ship the thing when you're a little bit embarrassed,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and you learn to do that over time. You learn to put out a better product, but ultimately, like you said, 80-year-old you is going to have a different view of this music than you do right now, 2 months after releasing it, and you're going
Yeah.
to have things
Yeah.
you wish you had back. But ultimately, if you waited until you're 80 to release that music, then nobody would have it for 60 years, for
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
50, 60 years. So,
Owen, do you have any advice today for the person listening who said, I've always wanted to play music, I've always even wanted to write music, I'm just way too scared to actually, uh, uh, or maybe let's make it more specific and just say, I'm not good enough yet to either play publicly or to write any of my own songs. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's such a craft. Like, it's like playing a sport or something. Like it's not something that's going to magically just come to you and you're going to get better at.
mm,
Like, and I think that is how I viewed songwriting for so long. Is I was like, I can't, I can come up with a rhyme, but to me it sounds cheesy, and no one would want to hear that. But the more that I've sat down with it and really tried, like really given it a good try, I feel like people now resonate with songs that I have written more than I thought they ever would. So
mm,
I feel like my advice would be, if the person's stance is I'm not good enough or I don't have enough, whatever, I think you just got to get reps. I'm like, there's also something so awesome. I'm like, if it's you, no one's listening, which might sound discouraging, but I'm also like, it's just you. Like, go practice, go write 100 songs, and one of them's gonna stick. Because I think that
yeah,
that mindset switch of being like, there's no such thing as a perfect song. I'm like, there's no formula that's going to make this thing go. So I'm like, there's no point of me sitting for 1,000 hours on one track and thinking this is going to be the one. I might as well try to write 100 mediocre songs, and in the process I become a better writer because of it.
Just real quick to the
yeah,
reps
yeah.
thing. Oh, and I wanted to ask you, like, I obviously don't want the specifics, but when you look back, would you say that there are certain shows that were like, that just didn't go well?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I do feel like there's probably been times where I have left something and been like, I don't think that was received well, or I've put out something that I'm really proud of, and the reception isn't what I quite expected to it. Uh, but I think that's just kind of part of what you sign yourself up for when you're doing anything creative. Or, I mean, Taylor's been bringing up great comparisons to startups and business. I'm like, it's the same thing. You're opening yourself up to rejection and comparison, and it's kind of that same conversation earlier of if you have an identity in advance that's something bigger than that, and you know the purpose of what it's serving. I think you're bound to have nights and times or songs or anything creative that I'm like, someone's not gonna like that, or it's gonna flop on its face. And I think you have to have those in order to experience everything else at the same time.
I love that you said that because it's all just a rep,
Yeah.
like whether it's dating, whether it's business, um, whether it's making music, like whatever it is, you're strengthening yourself, you're growing, and you're failing, and you're learning what your limits are, and then taking a step. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's just like you're not going to get better at music if you don't try to like put yourself out there. You know, you're not going to get better at business if you don't go and try and sell somebody something or go and try and provide value. You know, you're not going to get better at dating if you don't learn what you desire in a relationship by trying to be in a relationship. You know. Well, sweet. I think this is a good spot to end, and
we're
we
failing
really
forward,
appreciate
right?
having you on. Yeah, failing forward, exactly. Failing forward with our connections, failing forward with our music, failing forward with our business, failing forward with everything, right? Appreciate you spending the time to chat with us here today, Owen. We really appreciate it. I'll drop links to all of your stuff if you want to send them over. I'll drop them on this podcast for all 10 people who are viewing it, including yourself. So
when my metrics go up, I will have the Side League Failing Forward podcast to thank. So for the listeners out there, I appreciate you.
Love it. Well, cool. Amazing. I think that's the end of the podcast.
Love it.
Goodbye.
Hey, thanks for having me. See you guys.
I said I've been meaning to call you, but I just ran out of time. Not a real good reason, but it's all been on my